kind of big meal before I leave on our little soccer kind of girls' weekend with my oldest. And then we're going to do some copycat crumble cookies so that I kind of leave a nice, good little treat for the weekend. So we're going to start out kind of prepping up our meat. We'll get our noodles boiling. We'll prep up our cookies and kind of get that. So let's get I've got our scallops right here. I'm kind of drying them completely. That's the best way to saute them off. This is from our butcher box. These are nice big ones. And then this is our top sirloin, which I'm going to slice up also from our butcher box. And we're going to season those up. So I'm going to move their scallops slightly out of the way. And let's get our top sirloin here sliced up. And then we'll give it a quick little marinade and we'll do a little, we'll saute it off and then kind of move it for it. And then I might make a little yum yum sauce here in a little bit. So far, I've been kind of cooking up nice little pieces throughout our Butcher Box subscription. And I have been loving everything. It's been really good, high quality meat and delicious. I'm cutting nice, like good, sized chunks here that will saute off nicely. I'm going to cut that one. I don't need them super long, but nice ones that will cook up and have a nice good pink center in it when we saute it off here. I don't want to saute it, for too long because I want it to remain nice and tender for it. And then we'll do a kind of a really quick, simple marinade on it because we'll make a little bit of a sauce on it that we'll toss it in later. But again, this is our top sirloin kind of cut from our Butcher Box subscription. And surprisingly, it is frozen, but it dethaws and actually feels like it was never frozen. It must have been just like a simple flash frozen on there. So it's a really, really simple um, kind of, process. I'll say when I freeze meat down, it never feels like this. So far, I've been really, really happy with it, and it has saved me a couple bucks on my grocery delivery, like at least as far as like my groceries and what I pay every month. And I feel like the quality has been a little bit better. Everyone has liked it, so they've been happy with everything so far. My husband told me I cannot cancel it, so that is a good, from him. And he's the big meat eater, so if he approves, it must be pretty good. Okay, so we're gonna get these nice and kind of sliced up here. And then let's cut this guy in half. And again, nice little simple, chunks. We'll do a simple, very basic marinade on it, not too much because we'll make a lovely sauce for this later. And then we'll get some veggies kind of sauteing up for our stir fry or for our lo mein here. Okay, looks like I got all of these guys prepped and ready. So we're done with our cleaver here. Give my hands a quick rinse. And for our seasonings here, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of onion powder and give a nice little savory, pull up a little bit of moisture. A little bit of garlic salt. Not too much. And then I'm going to use a little bit of sesame oil. Just a light little drizzle, around, between a teaspoon and a half a teaspoon. Not too much because I don't want too much of that flavor to go in there. But it just gives that nice little nuttiness to it. We'll use a little bit of Japanese barbecue sauce, which is kind of gives you the saltiness of a soy sauce, but a little bit of a sweetness to it, about a tablespoon. And this is just going to be our basic flavoring to it. We're going to add more, again, a sauce for it, but this will really allow those flavors to kind of just permeate and sit into it until we're ready to saute it off here. So this is just a really quick, simple marinade for our meat, just to allow them to soak in just a little bit. And give it just a nice little mix around. Lovely. And then I'm just going to set this over here out of our way and make sure we don't lose anything. And while we're waiting for that, we can then get our, let's see, I'm going to decide what order I want to do everything in. I think let's start on our cookies so we can get those going, and then we'll kind of work on this for it so that our cookies have a chance to set. Because with the Crumbl cookies, you have to let them sit for a good while before you eat them, but I wanted our meat to have a chance to marinate. So I'm going to make a big batch of these because last time I decided to make a half batch and I felt like there was going to be a mutiny because everybody was like, oh, we didn't have enough of them, even though this makes a lot of cookies. So we're going to start with 3 sticks of butter. So you need 1.5 cups of butter. And this is the Copycat of their classic chocolate chip cookie. Now, normally I would use the special Guittard super chips, but I'm all out of them. So we're just going to use a mixture of chocolate chips that I have. But to get the true Copycat Crumbl cookie, you got to use those chocolate chips, which are the super bougie chocolate chips. But you can always sub in your own chocolate chips for it. But those give you that true Copycat flavor. But I was cleaning out my pantry this weekend and I found a bunch of, half-used bags. So I was like, we're going to use it. We'll do our base. I'll make the big ones because they all love the big cookies. Let's get this. And you're going to want to use room temperature butter. You don't want it to be cold because you're going to want it to cream nicely with our sugars. So there are our 3 sticks of butter here. And then we're going to add in our sugars. Let me slide these to the side here. Get our water right over there. But we have granulated sugar and brown sugar. We're going to use 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar because this is a brown sugar heavy recipe, which makes it so good. So 3/4 of a cup of our granulated. We'll add that in here with our butter. And I'm going to set this to the side because then we are good with this one. And then we're going to end up using 1.5 cups of our brown sugar. So I said this is it's full of lots of brown sugar, but that's going to give it such that almost like a blondie kind of base to it, or that cookie cake base to it, which is what's so nice. Make sure you have it firmly packed so that you're getting all the correct measurement in. So this is a 1/2 cup measuring cup. So that's a 1/2 cup. I'm going to do a 1/2 cup more, and I'm using light brown sugar, which is what you're going to want for the right flavor profile. Dark brown will have too strong of a molasses flavor for this. And then we'll do another. So we've got 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Bring this guy up, and we're going to cream our sugars and our butter together. So 3 sticks of butter, 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, and 1.5 cups of brown sugar. And this makes about 12 big size, Crumbl cookies here. So it's a good amount of cookies. I'm going to grab my little spatula here because you're going to want to press down throughout the process here and make sure you don't get any butter stuck to the sides, because you want it to make sure that all the ingredients get creamed well together. Here we go. So we'll slide that over and then we'll mix it up. So just always throughout the process, always make sure you push it down, because sometimes your butter will get stuck to the side of your bowl, and then by the end, you'll notice that you'll have this butter layer, then it's a sugar layer, and your cookies won't mix up as well. So we've got our butter creaming into our sugar. And once it's one cohesive mixture, we'll be nice and ready here. So again, I'm just going to push down. Now these cookies are different than my traditional chocolate chip cookies because The Crumbl chocolate chip cookie is a different cookie. It's a different beast altogether because it is like a hybrid between a cookie and like I feel like a cookie cake because it is massive. Here we go. And let's get it. One more mix in. So now this is kind of that creamed look that you want where it's nice and smooth and one cohesive color. Then we're going to add in 2 eggs and then 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla. So we've got 2. You want to make sure I'm using like good size eggs, so large eggs. But we'll add them in there and then we'll cream them into our base here. So I've got our 2 eggs in. Give my hands a quick rinse. And this is where you're going to want to make sure you use your spatula because your eggs, again, will mix for the main base. But if you forget to push down that butter, you're not going to get it all the way mixed together. And that can really mess with the consistency of your cookies to where you'll have runny parts in your cookies instead of like one cohesive batter. There we go. Okay. Lovely. Now we're going to add in 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla, which is a lot of vanilla, but trust me, these cookies are worth it. You'll want it. It's going to add a great flavor to it. So 1 and 1/2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. And we'll cream it in. And this is going to give it that nice, just wonderful, mellow flavor throughout. Turn that down. Beautiful. Okay, so now that we've got our egg and our vanilla mixed in here, I'm again just push the sides down. Then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then a teaspoon of salt. And those are going to help give our cookies, they're kind of rise with the eggs, but these will be, just going to be so good. I always say that Crumbl cookies they're just such a massive cookie. It's just so different from your classic one. So 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So most cookies typically use baking soda, but this baking powder, because they are a bigger cookie, you need a little bit of that extra oomph to make sure that it like completely rises. So here's your baking powder, and then 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And these also use a lot more flour. So this is going to use about 4 1/4 cups of flour, where your traditional cookie dough recipe uses about 2 1/4 cups. So let's cream these guys in. And once we get it nice and mixed in, we can add in our flour. But again, I'm going to push down because I want to make sure that baking powder, baking soda really gets thoroughly mixed around. Here we go. And the nice thing about these cookies is this is not a dough you have to chill. So my classic chocolate chip cookie dough that I make, which I use for make my like regular cookie doughs, is one that I chill so that I can get a nice chewy cookie on here. But since the Crumbl cookie are kind of similar to a blondie cookie cake, it uses more flour in it, which means you don't have to chill it. And so you can have cookies ready in no time. We're going to use our flour here, all-purpose flour, and we're going to do 4 1/4 cups. We'll cream them in together, and then it'll be time to add our chocolate chips. And then we just have a special method of measuring them out and like forming them which gives them that nice kind of texture and bake on them. That's 1 cup.
You have a question. Can you use bread flour for this?
I would not use bread flour for it. 3 cups. Bread flour has more gluten in it, which weighs it down, and will cause it to like be a denser cookie. 4 cups. Is that 4 cups? Yes. Okay. You know me and counting on there. And then 1/4 a cup more. So you want to use with cookies, unless it says otherwise, it's almost always going to be all-purpose flour, just because of the gluten content in there. It's a heavier. It just cooks up differently. And we're going to mix these, cream these together. And then I will, and once it's kind of moving here, we'll add in, I'll use my spatula to help mix it down, but I wanted to get a good formation going. And then we're going to add in our chocolate chip cookies, or chocolate chips. Okay, we've got our first base down. And then we're going to add these guys in. And make sure you scrape all that kind of butter off from the side so that it can completely incorporate. And I will say this dough is delicious to eat. So if you are a cookie dough fan, this is one. My kids enjoy helping me make the cookies, as in eat the cookies. So we'll cream these guys together. And once it starts to hold all together, then we'll know that it's ready. You can see how we have a nice thick batter forming, or a dough. Beautiful. Lovely. Perfect. Now I'm just going to give a nice little scrape around. Again, make sure everything gets equally mixed up here. Now, again, my preferred chocolate chips, the ones that Crumbl Cookie actually uses, are the Guitar Super Chips, which are like these bigger ones, and they use about 3 cups for this big size, which is roughly like 1.5 to 2 bags of them. But I did not have any. I had the white chocolate chip ones, but not the chocolate chip ones. So we're going to use a whole different mixture of chocolate chips today, using up just all of my random pieces, because I always have a random collection of chocolate chips. Now, don't think that you can just sub in like a melting chip, which is it looks like a big chocolate chip. Melting chips have a lower melting point than a regular chocolate chip. So if you try to sub those in for a chocolate chip, they'll melt in your cookie and they won't keep their form. So while they may look like a super chip like they use in Crumbl Cookie, you'll have like a very messy chocolate chip cookie. So they may look the same, but they are not the same. Okay, so here is our chipless batter, or chipless dough, I should say. And we're using a collection here. I've got quite the collection. I need about 3 cups of chocolate chips on here, which is going to be about these bags here. So we're just going to kind of throw them in here because I have lots of random ones. And I'm using 2 different sizes. So I've got some regular size and on there. The super chips that they typically use are more of like a milk chocolate. They're not a quite as bitter as a semi-sweet. They're a little bit sweeter, but I personally like more of a semi-sweet. Although my older daughter, she swears by the milk chocolate ones, so she loves them. But to each their own. We're gonna mix these guys in and kind of incorporate them up. But for this one, you want about 3 cups of chocolate chips. You could also use a chocolate bar and like cut it up,
Mary sent you again.
Well, thank you, Mary. We appreciate that. Now I'm going to mix this in here, incorporate it. Then we're going to use a 1/2 cup measuring cup to form these. And then once they're nice and formed, we're going to kind of rip them apart, push them together, and then we'll bake them up. And these bake at 375 for about 12 minutes on here. I'm going to get in with my hands now because Now you're kind of working the dough. And these are so good.
Maybe a suggestion of butterscotch chips.
Ooh, that would be good. I know. I feel like this is where you could go crazy and really sub in other ones and change it up if you wanted to. I was tempted. I had like a tri chip one where it was like dark chocolate, milk chocolate, and white chocolate, and I almost used those, almost. But I was like, I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna use for. I have this big just box of baking chips of all sorts of different like baking chips. And I go through and I always buy whenever I see seasonal baking chips, I grab them. And so I'm like, oh, I've got butterscotch in there and I've got maple and caramel and I've got so many different baking chips in there. But there is this one baking chip that I love and I cannot find it anymore. And I just don't know if they don't make it anymore. But it was a cinnamon chip. And I used to make cinnamon chip oatmeal cookies. And I have not been able to find my little cinnamon chip baking chips anymore. And it was like in college, I used to go to over to my brother's apartment and I would make him and his dorm mate or his apartment mates I would cook them Sunday dinner every weekend and I would make them like cookies or whatnot. But that was their favorite and they always requested it.
Lisa says Walmart has it.
I'll have to check it out. So I'll have to look there because they have not been anywhere else I've been to for it. Okay, so you're gonna take a half a cup measuring cup here and I press it in to form it. And then I'm gonna dump it out. And then you don't just put it on here like this. Once you've formed it, you're going to break it apart, flip it over, and then gently press it together like that, just to hold it together. And then you're going to put it on here. That is your cookie. Breaking it apart like that is going to allow it to bake nicer than if you keep it in the mold. It puts a little bit of looseness in there so it's not so dense because when you push it in here, you made it kind of dense. And so when you break it apart, it allows it to, just have a little bit of breathing room in its baking process. So take it apart, kind of press it there, and it gives you that nice, pretty shape for it. And these are the giant cookies. They're giant. There's no way to get around it. They're big.
What do you mean there's no way? You can make them smaller.
No, these cookies you can't make smaller. You have to go with a different recipe. These cookies you have to make big. So that's what I was saying. These are a different beast. This recipe, they don't cook up differently.
Okay. Make a small one.
No, they are different. I know.
Try one.
Because then I have to bake it at a different temperature. See, this is where he just needs to go back to being the videographer. Because if I put a small one on here, it's going to bake up faster. Because my regular chocolate chip cookies bake up about 9 minutes at a different, thing. So there's different.
Make a small one at 9 minutes. We'll pull it out with some foam.
See, and then we'll ruin the other cookies because we've opened up the temperature of it. You see, guys, you see what I have to live with here? I know. Send help.
So what size measuring cup is that?
A half a cup. And so we kind of just put it in here and then break it apart. Flip this guy over and then just kind of shape it. You don't want to push it too hard together. They'll stretch out a little bit. You know what? I'm just going to do my 6 and 6. Sometimes I try to stretch it out, but I'm going to have to do 2 baking sheets anyways. So it's not, I always say, oh, I'll try to fit more on here. I'm not going to. Plus my kids will come home and they'll be like, cookie dough. So, and pull. Now again, these cookies, you bake them. Now, like regular cookies, you sit and you let them sit for a good 5 minutes on the baking sheet. These have got to sit for 15 minutes. Think of brownies, how brownies have to sit. These are halfway between a blondie. And so they need to sit, otherwise because that takes longer because they're huge for that egg and that butter to settle in the middle. So don't rush them. Don't rush. Take the time and wait for them. They'll still be warm and toasty and wonderful. It just takes a little bit longer for them to cool.
Video question. And why do you fold them apart?
It allows them to bake up a little bit nicer. When you're pressing them into the cookie thing, you're compacting the dough down. So when you break them apart, you're taking them and allowing it to rise up a little bit nicer and get a little bit more breathing room in there. So they just, it cooks up nicer. Has a nicer rise on it. I'm sure there's a technical word for it. But it just gives it that unique bake on it, more uniform so that it can evenly bake up versus fall out on the edges. Yeah. We're going to bake these at 375 for about 12 minutes. Now, sometimes, depending on your oven, they might need a little bit more. Wait 1 second, guys. I forgot to pop this up from my jumbo diet or Dutch oven the other day. Pop them here. Since I held my oven open for a little bit longer, I'm going to do for 12 and a half minutes to let it warm up a little bit longer. But between 12 to 15 minutes on there, they're going to look a little bit like wiggly jiggly, but trust me, you're going to want to take them out, let them set, and finish kind of cooking there for it on there. Okay, while we're waiting, we're going to saute off. Let's get our noodles dropping so that we can work on our things. I'm going to wash my hands. I got a little sugar on them. I'll get this. My kids will be very, very happy. This is one of their favorite meals on here. Okay, let's get our noodles dropped so that these will be, well, we can drop in just a second. I'm trying to think of my order. Let's get our noodles dropped. That way I have that pan over there to cook with. So we've got our lo mein noodles here. These are just some wide lo mein noodles. These take about 5 minutes to cook. Don't overcook them. You won't want mushy lo mein noodles. You want nice ones that will soak up the flavor but keep their form. They cook much faster than a regular pasta. Once you drop them in there, use your tongs, use something, they will stick together. So you need to toss them fairly often so that you don't have a big chunk of noodles. So we're going to just give them lots of tosses here until I'm good that they're not going to just stick into one bit. And then when we take them out, I'll just toss them with a little teeny bit of sesame oil just to help do a little bit of non-sticking to it, but we're going to have them coated in a lovely marinade. And then what we'll do is we are going to saute off our steak, and then I'll remove that, and then we'll work on our lo mein veggies for our thing. Look at this. Beautiful. Now you can use all sorts of noodles. Sometimes I use like the ramen noodles, or the super cheap ramen, and I just discard the little seasoning packs. So you can use all sorts of noodles for this and kind of just sub them in. But we can get these in our like little international section. Okay, these are looking like they're pretty good here. But again, just make sure you stir them fairly frequently in the beginning because they do like to stick together more so than like your traditional pasta, like your Italian noodles. These can stick a bit much.
Are those frozen noodles?
No, these are just like a dry noodle that you get. They're just on the shelf. Like I find in our international aisle, they're on the bottom shelf there. Let's get our meat searing off here. So we marinated it, and then we'll cook up our vegetables in here. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon or so in my olive oil in my saute pan. I'm going to heat it up on high on about a 6 to 7-ish in here with a little bit of sesame oil. We did drizzle a little bit over our steak too, but I want that nice nutty flavor to come in here. I don't like to use straight up sesame oil because it's a bit strong, but we'll get a nice start on it, a little bit in there. We have about 2 to 3 minutes left on these. These cook fast, and I will say overcooking them will go mushy. While we're waiting for our oil to heat up here, let's get our onion prepped up. And then towards the end, we'll saute off our scallops. Our scallops are something that will cook up really, really fast. So we'll do them at the very, very end for it, because that's actually, I'm grabbed some stuff to make a yum yum sauce, but my son Torrin is always asking, can you make scallops and yum yum sauce? Can you make scallops and yum yum sauce? And then he's always like, can you make enough so I can have it in my lunch at school? And all I think, I'm like, you are like the bougiest kid. You bring like scallops with yum yum sauce to school. I'm gonna slice my onions in nice kind of thin slices so that they'll match our noodles on there. When I'm making any of my like vegetables for our lo mein, I like to make them kind of match the shape of the noodles. That way they'll all bend and flow with it. I'm getting there. Okay. Feels just about right. You can see just how tender they have gotten here. Okay. I'm going to grab my thing and get ready to strain these. I think this is the one thing that I feel like I've noticed most of the time. If you go to like a takeout restaurant or one thing, they overcook your lo mein noodles. That can always get me. I don't like a mushy lo mein noodle. So you want them there. You want them to have a little bit of firmness, because remember, we're going to be tossing them in a marinade, so they will soak up liquid on there, but you don't want them to get mushy. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to turn that off. I'm going to strain these over here, and then we'll set them to the side, and then our oil should be nice and hot that we can start searing off our meat. Here we go. I'm going to just hold this up here, and then I'm going to give it a quick drizzle of sesame oil over the top, because these noodles are a little bit more sticky than our classic Italian noodles, but not too much. And this kind of gives it a little added flavor to it when we toss them in there. So give them a little coating for it, but doesn't need to go too much. And they'll still stick together, but once we kind of get them completely submerged in our marinade, they'll all break apart again. Okay. Feel like I've got some good heat going here, that we can drop our meat in, our steak off, so that we can saute it here. So we did our quick kind of seasoning up on our top sirloin here, and we're going to sear it off.
You want to go over the seasoning real quick?
Yes, so we did a really simple seasoning on here: onion powder, garlic salt, a little bit of Japanese barbecue sauce, and some sesame oil. So just fairly simple, because we're going to add a little bit of, we'll make a lovely marinade for our lo mein, and that will add some more flavors. But enough to give it a nice extra bit of sear on here. I'm going to add our meat in here, and we're just going to saute it off nice and high on each side. Flip it over. We want it to be nice and pink in the inside, so that it's at a nice medium rare. So we're not going to overcook it. And then I'm just going to, I'll probably have to do it in 2 batches here, but enough to get a good, great sear on it. There we go. And then I'll remove it, and then we'll cook our veggies and everything for it. Doesn't need to go by you. I'm making this for the children. For the children. I know, I was sitting here because, my older daughter and I, we're going to be heading out to Cincinnati for some soccer games this weekend. And I was like, oh, I'll cook up. This is one of my, like, the ones that are staying home. This is actually just everybody's favorite meal. So I was like, I'll cook this one. We'll make it so this can be like a really early dinner eat for them tonight, because they're going to have to suffer through Papa Bear meals. I might order them a pizza tomorrow night or whatnot. But I did prep up some food for them, but they're going to, it'll be a rough weekend, Papa Bear meals on there. So.
And what kind of meat is that?
This is top sirloin. It's from our butcher box that we get. So we get this little monthly subscription. And so far I've been pretty pleased with it. especially since it is all frozen, like flash frozen. But it actually has held up really, really nice, and it tastes like as if it's fresh on there. Been really, really happy with the quality and the prices, I will say. There we go. Get these guys. Like last night, even though we got kind of just ran around late with like soccer, so we couldn't end up streaming because I ended up having to cook half and half between it. But we made little carnitas quesadillas last night, and so I used a pork roast from the butcher box, and it was lovely. I will say it was so nice and tender. I did it in my Instapot, and then I shredded it, and then we made a little quesadillas with Monterey Jack and cheddar, and then with some guacamole, and then like chips and dip. And it was just a simple but really easy dinner that we had, especially since it was just kind of in and out last night. That's kind of the life right now. When we in the spring, you get just so much rain here that practices just like have a plan, and then oh, we're practicing at this time at this location. Oh, this one, it's a change. It's a change. So many changes. We're gonna let it saute for just a few seconds on this side. The second side does not need to cook as long as the first side.
You want to talk about the stream schedule this weekend?
Yes, so this will be our last stream until Sunday night, until we get back. But we do have lots of little shorts and videos that are coming out. We made a stock video from our homemade stock, as well as some little shorts of other things that will be coming out for the next couple of days until we get back. Just some things about our family and just kind of going on with us.
Oh man, that's brutal. Dan said you should order some takeout salmon, veggies, and pasta for this weekend.
You know what? The children would all love that. I think that is a wonderful idea.
No.
I think that would be amazing. Evie would be so happy. See, Evie is already, she's gonna be like a queen tomorrow. Her Momo, so my mom is gonna be picking her up because she has 2 soccer games, and like another, like about an hour away. So her Momo's taking her, and they're gonna go out and have like a day of it, go out to eat and have a fun little girls' day out. So it is literally gonna be the boys tomorrow at home with Papa Bear meals, and whew, they're gonna have a rough time of it. Luckily, I have a feeling that Torrin might be making eggs for breakfast tomorrow for them. We'll see. Chef Torrin is a better cook than Papa, I will say. Although, I said when I was going, we are picking out like high school classes, and they were like, oh, what other classes you want? And he goes, do you have any culinary arts classes? And the high school does, because it's a fairly big high school. And they're like, we do. You could definitely take that as an extra class. And I was like, you know what? I didn't know you were that interested. I was like, I could teach you if you wanted. He doesn't want to learn from his mama. Here we go. Let's get these guys on here. We'll saute these off. Let me drop these in, and let's go grab those cookies out of the oven because we want them to sit and be resting for okay. Oh, looking gorgeous. Now look at these beautiful cookies. You see the rip apart, pull apart. It's all the magic there. Again, $3.75 for about 12 minutes, and you got to let them sit. So sit on the board here. I'm going to have to find a spot to put them. Move this right here. And then, there we go. Let them sit on the tray for, about 10 to 15 minutes before you move them, because if you try to lift them up right now, they'll fall apart. That whole middle needs to sit because it is like, that it's just the egg and the butter just needs to settle. But they are going to be wonderful and amazing. And then, of course, the steak bites that will be going into it. The goal is to cook these at a nice kind of medium rare. You don't want to overcook them, so I sear them off nice and high on here, which means, you'll cook them off, flip them over. They should still be pink in the middle, and they'll be continuing to cook, a nice residual. Cameraman says they're perfect, so that is good. And then we'll throw them back into the lo mein at the very end. And then I've got my other pan, which we'll sear our scallops off. Because scallops are something that are different. They're very delicate, so that's something you're going to cook right before you serve it. It's not something you can cook ahead or anything like this. Steak, you can cook and it can sit and it will be wonderful on there. Scallops, fish, that is something you cook right before you serve. We'll get these on here. And really the second side, you're just flipping to kind of almost give it that nice little brown on it. But don't cook it too much. You want it to sit and kind of that residual heat to finish cooking. Now I told the cameraman that he must save the steak for Evie and Torin. Well, Evie especially, because Evie is not as big of a fan of scallops. And she would be very sad if she didn't get her good serving of steak. This is one of her favorite meals. There we go. And let's get our veggies kind of cooking up here. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil in here. I turned the temperature down to, I'm going to do it even lower to about a 2.
What kind of steak?
So this is top sirloin. So nice tender cut, which is really great for a nice hot sear on it to kind of trap in that like moisture and wonderful flavor for it. Okay, let's get our onions in here. Sprinkle these guys around. Give them a nice little toss. Mix these guys up. Beautiful. And let's get these nice little drippings off of there because, again, that is what's going to add so much flavor to our lo mein. We are going to be making a lovely marinade, but the nice little meat drippings will add a little bit of extra. And then, of course, we'll have our turf, which is our steak, but we're going to have our surf part with our scallops here in a little bit, which we'll season up right before we cook them. Okay. We'll have those start to kind of caramelize, and then we can start to prep up our other veggies. And then we will get ready for making our marinade. But our veggies that we're going to have in here, we're going to have some purple cabbage, carrots, peppers. At the very end, we'll add in some green onions as well. But let's get our peppers here. We're going to slice these. These are just a sweet pepper, so nothing spicy on here. Slice them down, then I'm going to just de-seed them. And I'm going to cut them in nice kind of thin strips similar to our onions so that we have just nice little slivers that will flow with the noodles. I always like to kind of keep things nice and simple. There. One more, slide down. Get there. Always just try to get the seeds out. Now, with sweet peppers, the seeds aren't spicy like with spicy peppers, so you don't have to worry about that as much. It's more of a texture thing. Now, most of the time, sweet peppers aren't very seedy, but for some reason, this bunch was very, very seedy. So we're getting them all off for the most part. Slide them to the side. Look at that. I am like completely seedified. I'm just going to go give them a quick rinse so that I get some of these seeds off because there's like 1,000 little seeds in here. Give them a good little shake. That way we'll have a nice little sear. And then what I'm gonna do is, again, I'm gonna cut from the inside. That way I get a good grip on my peppers. And then we're just gonna do a nice thin little matchstick kind of cuts on them. If you cut from the inside, you're gonna have that nice little grip on your pepper, which will allow you to kind of cut nicely. Won't slip as much. That's kind of easier. I feel like, when I first learned to cut light peppers, I was always cutting them from the outside, but the inside, it just cuts easier. There we go. So we'll get these guys in, and then I'll let them kind of cook up with the peppers. A lot of times I'll go onions and then carrots, but because I'm going to be using my peeler on my carrots, the ribbons are a little bit thinner. I'm going to do my peppers first because they're going to be a bit hardier and will need a little bit longer cook time. There we go. So let's add these guys in here. Nice little rainbow of sweet peppers. We'll give them a toss in here with our little onions that are kind of cooking on our lovely, lost the guy. There we go. Get our seeds out. Okay, beautiful. We've got all those nice meat drippings and those seasonings from the meat, kind of cooking those up there. Okay, let's get a little bit of garlic mince up there so that it can saute, and then we'll do our carrot ribbons and our purple cabbage, and we'll make our marinade. There we go. There. Finally. I'm going to do, because I love garlic, we're going to do a good handful of garlic, about a tablespoon and a half, once we're nice and minced up here, which will add a great bit of wonderful flavor to it. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can use garlic. I would use about a tablespoon of it. You'll have a little bit more of an acidic flavor with garlic versus fresh garlic, which is a bit more mellow, but you can definitely sub it in.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? I unfortunately will not be here. I'm heading out of town shortly after to go to Cincinnati for some soccer games this weekend with my oldest daughter. So I won't be back until Sunday. But we do have a couple of videos, some shorts and stuff that we'll be sending out. We'll be sending out some recipe cards this weekend as well. But next stream will be Sunday dinner when we get back on there.
And what pans do you use?
So I have a couple different pans that I like to use. I've got for my all metal pans, I use All Clad, which I've had for about 17 years. They were wedding presents. And then for my non-stick pans, I use Hex Clad, which I've had for a little over 2 years now, which I really love, mainly because they're really easy to clean and I haven't damaged them. So that's a win. Anytime something can survive me in the kitchen is always a win. And so I really, really like them. And they put it there. For my Dutch ovens, I kind of have a mixture of Le Creuset and Staub, mainly because they've all been gifted to me by my mom. And then I do have a couple of like Joanna Gaines ones from like Target. They're very affordable and they've actually held up through time. Those are the ones that I bought my own. Okay, let's get our carrots peeled here. I'm going to take off our little outer bit. And this is just the dry, woodier part of our carrot. And get this. And then what I'm going to do is we will just put these ribbons straight. I'm going to peel them straight into our pan and we'll let them saute. And then we'll do our cabbage. Now these are just going to be wonderful. They're going to soak up all the flavor of our marinade, and then they'll also blend well with our lo mein noodles. So I just love doing carrot ribbons because they're pretty and delicious. They work better than like a matchstick carrot or using shredded carrots because they're so thin and tender. And then we'll add in our purple cabbage, which will add a pop of color and a little bit of wonderful flavor. It'll be delicious. Here. Break it down. We got one in. Perfect. And then once we get our noodles closer there, we'll make our marinade. We'll get our scallop sautéing off. We'll make a lovely little yum yum sauce on the side for it. But my kids will be very, very happy that they'll have a nice kind of super early dinner, because this is never a dinner time for us. But they'll be very, very happy to have something before I leave. They'll have a lunch dinner. Although they'll sit there and then you know what Papa will be like, oh, you guys already had dinner. They're like, no, I'm pretty sure that's lunch. It's like anytime we eat like dinner early, like with my parents, they're always sit there and they come around like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and they're like, oh, so what's for dinner? And I'm like, we ate dinner at like 5:36. They're like, no, that was lunch. And I'm like, no, that was dinner. They're like, no, I'm pretty sure that was lunch. And I was like, no, that was dinner. Well, I'm hungry now. I'm always hungry. Okay, we've got our carrot ribbons in there. And you see how crazy just 2 carrots can give you that many little ribbons? It's just amazing. Beautiful. Okay, we've got this little itty bitty bit of purple cabbage, which will add a great little bit of flavor and just wonderful. I will say I have a little bit of cabbage that always just lasts me forever. I'm shredding it nice and thin because I like just little bits of it, and it'll pick up our marinade wonderfully.
Judy's gonna take it.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. But little, shave it nice and thin. That way it will cook up nicely and you'll get those little flavors throughout. But just because you have a little nub doesn't mean it can go to waste. Perfect. Okay, I think it's finally ready to go. I've used it for like 6 different meals, guys. Put our purple cabbage in. We'll let our veggies saute here. Perfect. And then we're just going to let these saute for a few minutes. While we're doing that, we're going to make our marinade, and then we'll season up our scallops, saute them off, and then we'll be ready to kind of put everything together. Let me give our hands a quick rinse. Got a little bit of cabbage on them. Okay. While that's sauteing there, this is where all of our flavor is going to come in for our lo mein. And this is, I feel like, this is where the beauty and the complexity comes in for Asian like dishes, that people are always like, it's so complex, it's so hard. And it's like, it is, but it isn't. Once you realize that they layer so many flavors together and you figure it out, it's amazing. But it's just a bunch of different things. So we're going to use some miso, which has kind of got a savory, umami flavor to it. This, I'm going to use about a tablespoon on here. I can get this at my local grocery store. You can also get it on Amazon for it as well. But it's just in the international one. I'm just going to break it apart with my fork to begin with. Then we're going to add in some ginger paste, about a tablespoon. Now, if you don't have ginger paste, you can use dried ginger, or you could grate your own. If you're going to grate your own ginger, use your own ginger, taste your ginger first. Sometimes you get really spicy ginger. Sometimes you get mild ginger. Decide based on your ginger. If it's spicy, use less. If it's mild, use more. I find that when I'm juicing, I have made the mistake of, I need an inch of ginger, and I use the world's spiciest ginger, I swear, and we could not drink the juice I made because it was so spicy. We're going to use in a little bit of vinegar. I'm going to use about a tablespoon of vinegar here. This is rice vinegar, but if you don't have rice vinegar, a white vinegar, apple cider vinegar always works well. So about a tablespoon here. The acidity of this works really well for cutting down, but you need to pair it with something sweet. So I'm going to use a little bit of honey as the sweetness factor for it. It cuts through that vinegar, but you want that tanginess in here. So about a tablespoon of honey with that. I'm going to use some coconut aminos, which is like a savory liquid, about a tablespoon. Where's my oyster sauce? We're going to use about a tablespoon or so of oyster sauce, which has a unique flavor, but it just adds just like a nice, wonderful flavor. And I will say, so much of this has just a bunch of unique flavors, but it comes together in this just really nice, complex flavor. And then I'm gonna give this a mix, start a mixing, and then we're gonna add in, and I will say my little like shortcut cheat here that just makes everything taste better is Japanese barbecue sauce. This is like my secret weapon in the kitchen. I feel like it really can elevate your Asian cuisine without having to do a lot of legwork. It's got the sweet and the savory. It's much better than just a straight up soy sauce because it's already mellowed out some. We're going to use about two tablespoons of this in here. So you need a good amount. And this is something that I will also add in if I need more flavor later. So let me mix it up. And then before I'll put it in here, I always taste and see if I'm missing something. This is my base. And then I'll just kind of dip my finger in. See? I'm going to use, I think, I don't know if I want, actually, I think a little bit more Japanese barbecue sauce and a little bit more honey, and then I think I'm good. Do a little bit, squeeze more, and a little bit of honey, and then I think I'm good. Maybe like a teaspoon more. So this is my flavor profile here. We have garlic in here, so I don't need to add it, and we already have sesame oil. I'm going to add a little bit in right now to start. We're going to save the rest to go for our noodles and our meat. But I just toss a little bit right here to kind of coat up our veggies so they have a great bit of flavor. Wonderful. Perfect. And now we're going to add our noodles in here in just a second, but I'm going to let those simmer. While we're waiting for this to simmer for just a second, before we put our noodles in, let's season up our scallops and get them ready to cook up. So that will be ready for them. Slide this right over here. Now with scallops, because these were frozen, not like fresh, you want to make sure that you have ensured that they've had time to fully dry off. So I have them sitting on literally 2 pieces of paper towel. We'll remove them off, but this is going to ensure that they are completely dried up because you don't want them to be wet or sitting on and soaking. In order to get you those nice crispy golden feet on them when you fry them up, you want them to be dry. It's very important because if they're wet, they're not going to cook up as nicely. So we're just going to kind of flip it over here and then I'll kind of move them out. But my best way of when I do it is when after I've de-thawed them, which I de-thaw them in the fridge, you know, where you take them out of the freezer, you let them thaw off in the fridge, and then I put my paper towels down and then I place them about 2 underneath it and 2 on top until all of that liquid has soaked up. And now they're nice and essentially dry to touch. And we're going to just do a really simple seasoning on them.
Oh, Brenda Sanchiga.
Thank you, Brenda.
And then you have a question. What was the first ingredient for the marinade?
We started off with some miso paste, which I love. Now it's completely optional, but I can find it at my grocery store and I absolutely love it. Adds a nice umami flavor too. Okay, we've got our little scallops out here. Beautiful. I keep my scallops really, really simple in the sense that I'm just going to sprinkle garlic salt over these. Flip them over. A little bit of garlic salt on the other side. And then we fry them off in butter. We'll make a lovely yum yum sauce, but that's all. A little bit of garlic salt just to season them up. But scallops are one of those things, it's like if you have a good piece of meat, it's simplicity. And then it's easiest to do it with your fingers, but you could get out tongs and do it. I'm going to flip them over. and do it on the other side as well. And then I'm gonna do, when I'm fry them off, we'll fry them off in a mixture of butter and oil. Butter will give it that nice flavor, but that oil will allow me to cook them at a slightly higher temperature than just butter so I can get a nice good heat on them. There we go. And that's that butter. It will just make it lovely. Okay. I'm gonna turn this on, let it start to heat up. Let me grab a little bit of butter out of the fridge because I think I've used up all of mine out here. And we'll do some oil and butter. And that just I have a lot of scallops to get through, and it's just gonna allow it before my butter, the milk solids burn. Because if you try to cook butter on too high of heat, the milk solids will burn. Now, if you use like a ghee or a clarified butter, you don't have to worry about that as much. But if you're using straight up butter, that is something you have to consider. So about a tablespoon there, and then I'm gonna do an equal part of that. Once it's melted, I'll know to pop that in there.
I got a question. What's the trick to get your kids to eat fall food?
You know what? I just started it at an early age, and this is what we eat. I don't change it. We eat this food, and that's kind of how it is. I don't make separate meals for everyone, and even the cameraman has to put up with those rules. We eat salmon, and we eat salmon. I take into account what they like for it. So here's our little bit for it. I always said it sticks apart like this, but in order to get it to break apart, we're going to pour our marinade over the top of this, just like that, and soak it into it. And after a couple of good stirs and kind of in there, it should start to kind of come apart. And we'll get those flavors in here. And this will start to soak up the marinade. So the noodles on their own have no flavor, but that marinade is going to make these noodles amazing. And that's where you're going to get all that flavor into it. And then I've got some extra marinade saved to the side so that when we pop this beef or our steak in there, we'll get that in there as well. We'll get this, and then we're going to also top it with some green onions at the end for it. And then we have our cookies over here. Those are our Crumbl cookies. I've got to get another batch in the oven going for it, but these are nice and kind of cooled right now, so we can transfer them to our kind of a cookie sheet here. They need about 10 to 15 minutes on the baking sheet before you move them. So they should be perfect.
Do you have a question? You didn't use any soy sauce for the marinade?
I didn't. I have it right here and I tasted it. I use Japanese barbecue sauce, which has soy sauce in it, but it is a sweet and it has like a sweetened version of it. So I actually like it better because it does part of the legwork for you. So it has it in it, but it has like a sweetener in it. It's just nice. It's just delicious on its own. Sometimes all I use. My kids love it. They absolutely love. That's what they always use. They're like, "Oh, can I have a little bowl of dipping sauce?" And they'll just dip little steak tenders in it. Okay. Looks like we've got our butter and our oil nice and sizzling here. Let's go get our scallops in here in just a second. I'm going to have to do these in rounds because, of course, we're a big family and we have lots of scallops. Grab our tongs. I'm going to do my big fat ones first. And just trying to lay them up, stand them. Beautiful. And that way we can get our feet kind of crisped up, and you'll know when they're ready to cook is when you've got that nice little crispy brown edge forming. And then we'll flip them over. Scallops cook pretty fast. They don't take too long to cook up. I always do the outside of my pan first before I do the inside because the inside will cook faster because it's getting the most direct heat on there. Get this tossed. Beautiful. Wonderful. coating it up, and you see the noodles are just soaking in that marinade, and it is just looking lovely. And I have my heat on just very, very low on there. So it's just keeping everything nice and warm. And at the very end, we'll toss our meat back in there. But again, I don't want my meat. I want it to sit, and then we'll add it in there because you don't want it to overcook. We have it at a perfect medium rare right now. We'll toss it in there and keep it warm on there at the very end. Let's grab, let me see. Slide our cookies out right over here real quick. Get this. I can slide these guys off for it, but you can kind of see. But a nice, beautiful cookie. And you just have to let them sit, but they're just perfect and golden and wonderful on there. They're heavy.
Do you post your recipes anywhere?
So I do send out our recipes for our members a couple times a month, but we do post all of our lives available for everybody to watch, after our streams. And then we're working on our cookbook right now, which we're hoping to have out, in a month or two at the end of, end of March-ish is kind of our goal here for it.
And what kind of noodles?
So these are our lo mein noodles that we're working on. We have carrots, cabbage, sweet peppers in here, onions, garlic. We made a lovely marinade with a million different little flavors in there. And we're going to add in our top sirloin here in just a second. Here, I'm going to steal a noodle and taste it real quick. Beautiful. And then at the very end, we'll add in our steak and the rest of our marinade.
Brenda sent you again.
Well, thank you, Brenda. We appreciate that. Let's get a little bit of, we'll get these flipped here in just a second. I'm going to look at them, see how it's cooking. Almost have these perfect golden brown feet on it. I'll know once you see it, and then you'll flip it. Just about. I'm going to rotate this. While that's waiting, I'm going to just melt a little bit of butter to make our yum yum sauce, which is very, very simple, but it's a necessity for Torin. We need about a tablespoon of butter here. So I'll just let that melt up here. And then let's get these guys. Now with scallops, this second side is going to cook faster than the first side, and you don't want them to overcook. Look at these beautiful golden brown feet. You're getting this nice coloring from that mix of that butter and that oil. And that garlic salt as well helps give you that nice kind of golden color to it. There we go. Flip this over. Beautiful. Gorgeous.
Rondia sent you again.
Oh, thank you, Rondia. We appreciate that. Beautiful. I'm going to grab a plate to put these on because these will cook up and be ready pretty soon. And then we'll get our next round on here, and we'll make that, and we'll be about ready to kind of serve up here. While we're doing that, we're kind of getting to our final little bit over here. I'm just going to clean up this area, and then we can take those off, and then we'll put our next round in and make our sauce, and might shape up a few more of our cookies to go in there. And the kids are lucky. We might have some extra dough. I always say my recipe makes about 12 Crumbl cookies, but there's always about enough to make a cookie 13 with, a baker's dozen with one dough going for some tasting. Enough for some cookie tasting, I always say, for those helpers afterwards.
How many people are you cooking for today?
So it's kind of just our 7 for us, so our main crew here.
Kind of like 12.
12, yes.
We'll eat it twice.
Yes, they'll eat it. I said they'll eat it twice because they're going to be eating without, well, this will be their last meal, their last supper, I should say, until I get back on Sunday. So I said I would make them a feast. Fill them up. I did prep them food throughout the week to get them there.
Are the cookies sourdough?
They are not sourdough. This is my like copycat crumble cookies. So it is just a traditional like butter, brown sugar, sugar, flour, vanilla, eggs, your basic recipe. Let's get these guys looking good, looking good. Let's get these guys off. And looking for that nice little foot on the other side, and then I'll know that they're ready. And with scallops, again, a high temperature is what you want. You don't want to go low because then you're just going to have a rubbery scallop. You want to sear it. Beautiful. I'm going to turn off my butter here now that it's cooked. Perfect. And we'll have it melted, and then we'll make our yum yum sauce in just a second. Okay. I'll get these guys off. And we're going to pop our next round. Ooh, don't go rolling away from me. Beautiful. And these are, I will say, these go so fast. I always sit there and I'm like, these are always, like I say, they're so expensive, but they last like 5 seconds in here. But through the butcher box, because you get to pick things, these are one of those ones that like, they're actually like really affordable because you get a pound, and I buy like the butcher box where you get to pick like, it's like the larger one. So I have like, I honestly can't remember exactly how many selections I get each month. I have like 20 some selections. So I use it for it. And I've been kind of strategic. I kind of pick all of like the red meat options for it because I was like, oh, I can get chicken easily on these other places, but sometimes red meat is harder to find, like the nicer quality, like the steak cuts and stuff like that. And so I have found that I can get really good cuts there for a decent price. I've been pretty happy with it, and they have really good scallops. So I will say, I'm going to get these last ones on here. Slide these guys in here. Wonderful. And perfect. Make sure, I always say, make sure you don't overcrowd your pan with it, but you know what I mean? Because you don't want to slow down the cooking process. Okay, we've got our butter melted right here for this. We're going to make a quick yum yum sauce, which is really, really simple. And it's strange, guys, I'm going to tell you, but yum yum is delicious. You're going to use some mayo. You're going to use some ketchup. We're going to use some butter, a little bit of garlic salt, some onion powder, and some Japanese barbecue sauce. And that is really what it is, but it is so good. I'm going to use about a tablespoon of ketchup. I'm keeping my eyes over there. We're going to use about, I want to do about a half a cup because if I know Torrin, he's going to want a good amount. We're going to mix it together. That ketchup is what gives it its kind of coloring to it. I'm going to add in my tablespoon or so of butter, which is going to give it a nice velvety, smooth texture. And then we've got a couple more ingredients, but I think my scallops are getting close to being ready to flip. So click a pause. Just about, almost. I'm going to rotate my pan. Very, very close.
How much butter in the yum yum sauce?
So about a tablespoon of butter for it. So you don't need enough, but it's going to make it have a smoother texture to it, which I really like for it. We're going to add in some Japanese barbecue sauce, which gives you that perfect sweet and savory to it. Just about like a tablespoon or so. You don't need too much. But again, it's going to give you this nice kind of texture and flavor. And I'm going to add, A little bit of garlic salt. You don't need much, but just a teeny bit. And a little bit of onion powder. And that should be just about it. And a little bit of onion powder goes a long way. Perfect. Let's see if we have our little feet on here. Beautiful. So here are our nice little feet. And get them flipped over. And I will say this is that mixture between that butter and that oil. So you're getting that nice, lovely kind of beautiful crisp edge. I will say the second round you get a little bit more of the golden brown color because you get more of that caramelized, butter for it. If you're going to cook a third round of scallops, you may need to switch and change up, but they're going to be wonderful. I will say he approves. He says the butcher blocks scallops are amazing.
What's the seasoning for the scallops?
Just garlic salt. Very, very simple because we made a little yum yum sauce to kind of go with them. And this is kind of what you dip them in for it on it. Okay, let's finish off our steak little bites here. So this is our kind of our teriyaki steak bites. They're going into our stir fry here. And then we're going to pour our marinade over it. We cook these to a nice medium rare. We're going to go nice into our nice warm noodles with the rest of our sauce right on top. Coat them up. This keeps them nice and tender, warms them right back up at the very, very end, but doesn't get them to turn into overcooked bits at all. And then we're going to finish it off with some green onions. And these kids are going to have a very delicious early dinner. Let's finish off with some green onions in here. Add a pop of color and flavor. Let's grab right here. The fresh onions add just a great bit of fresh onion flavor, which adds just, I think, compares well with those nice Asian flavors. Beautiful. Okay. Think we should. Beautiful. Now the second side of the scallops, you don't cook nearly as long because you don't want to overcook your scallops. You don't want them to be rubbery. On the first side is you've already got that nice cook through. Beautiful. Gorgeous. And then we'll be ready to plate these guys off. So that's why I say we cook the scallops at the very end because, again, they cook so fast. They're just perfect. But don't crowd them. Always, do them in double batches. Or you can always get out a couple frying pans and do them in a couple at a time. But you don't want to rush them because they're just so good. Beautiful. And let's add this guy. Voila. And we are about ready to serve up here, guys. We've got quite the feast. Grab a plate here. Our feast none the least. We'll have very happy kids. Okay. Got off, and off. Okay. We are ready to serve up for dinner tonight, lunch dinner for everyone. We have our homemade surf and turf lo mein. So we have a lovely lo mein with a homemade sauce using oyster sauce, Japanese barbecue sauce, ginger, miso paste, garlic, and honey. We sauteed up some top sirloin, carrots, peppers, cabbage, and on the side, we're going to finish them off with our turf or surf part, which is our scallops here. So I'm going to put a couple more on here, which we seasoned with garlic salt and we seared with our um, butter and oil mixture. And then we made a lovely yum yum sauce using butter, Japanese barbecue sauce, mayo to dip them in. And then, of course, for a sweet treat, we have our homemade Copycat Crumbl cookies that are just the perfect blend of that sweet, oversized chocolate chip cookie that everyone just loves. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Um, we try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. Our surf and turf lo mein with our Copycat Crumbl cookies, and you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. We've got our hex clad pans, our all clad pans, our knives, cutting boards, all the different things we use in the kitchen we have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.